Welcome back, everybody. It's been a while. Stephen and I just moved to New Mexico. I'm hoping to do like an apartment tour for our friends and family once we have it all set up. We're definitely still doing some setting up. But in the meantime, I'm really excited to do this DIY pumpkin challenge that is hosted by Unicorn Dust Designs, who I just discovered, but love her videos. She's super spunky, has super simple but innovative designs, which I love. I feel like they're not coming from like a cookie cutter place that she just saw from someone else, so I love that. And then it's co-hosted by Crafted by Corie, who is another crafty YouTuber, and so I will be in their DIY pumpkin decoration challenge playlist. So I'm excited about that. And so we've got 2 crafts today and 2 pumpkin decorating ideas, but they're all pumpkin themed, so should be pretty exciting. However, this segment is called Crafting with Cocktails. Therefore, we are going to start with our cocktail. So let's get to it.
Here are our ingredients. We've got cinnamon sticks, an orange, some rum that I dug into the night before, whoops, and some apple juice or apple cider. I couldn't find the fresh stuff, but this will do. I am starting with my apple juice or apple cider and putting into a pot that's on medium heat. Next, we're adding our rum. I do about a 2-to-1 ratio because I like my drink strong, but you could, of course, add less. So I've got about 2 cups juice, 1 cup rum. All right, we are adding in our cinnamon sticks. Here I am trying to be a YouTuber, trying to get it to focus. Couldn't figure it out, but that's okay. So we just want to add in a cinnamon stick or 2. I'm not huge on cinnamon, so I don't want it to be overwhelmingly flavorful, and I'm going to let that cook before I add my oranges. So now I'm using about half an orange because I'm only making about half a recipe. So I'll squeeze the butt of the orange, and then I'm going to take 2 slices, give them a little squeeze, and then add them in. I like when they infuse with that flavor in the pot, and I'm going to let that simmer for just a few minutes. Just going to give it a nice little stir and then let it rest. Look how gorgeous that is looking. I can't wait to taste it.
Okay, it's been simmering just for a couple minutes here. I'm going to remove the cinnamon just because, like I said, I don't like things too cinnamony. I know some people really love cinnamon, and that's fine. I'm not huge on cinnamon, but it's really good when you add it to cider. So I'm going to let the oranges infuse a little bit more while I take out the cinnamon. Okay, so in total, it's probably been simmering maybe 10 minutes or so, not just now, but like including the cinnamon and everything else. I'm going to pour some up for myself and my honey. I did take a taste test off camera, and it is awesome. So let's pour it up and see how she turns out.
Pouring, pouring, pouring. Just pouring into these cute little clear Dollar Tree mugs I've had for a while. They're really fun to put colorful drinks into because you can see through them. In this instance, you'll see I put the little orange slices in there. And in a second, I'll throw a little cinnamon stick. But yeah, they're just cute and fun. And here is how they turned out. So stinking cute and delicious.
Here, I made this for you. Ooh, it's going to be hot.
Thank you.
I made a hot toddy, so it's like apple cider. I've got some orange juice in there, some cinnamon, and then some rum.
Okay.
So you want to take an official taste test?
For sure. It smells great.
Don't burn yourself.
That's really good.
Yay! Seal of approval.
Definitely.
On to the crafts. We are going to get started with this cute little pumpkin fella, so let's jump into it. Okay, so here is what you need. We have got some embroidery hoops, some cute Halloween-y fabrics, some felt, scissors, your hot glue gun, and your delicious hot toddy. So, there are 2 different types of embroidery hoops here. There's a plastic orange one, which is perfect for this from Walmart, and then this embroidery hoop that is made of bamboo that you could totally paint yourself. So I ended up choosing the orange embroidery hoop and the skeleton gray fabric. I thought it would be really fun and a little spooky for this project, so I am going to use those 2 for this example. Oops, time for a shot, my bad. Cheers! Anyways, back to crafting. So I'm just laying my embroidery hoop on the fabric and then cutting around it. So eventually what I'm going to do here is cut it close to size, maybe off by like an inch or two. And I am going to use a marker, or you could use a pen, whatever would show up for you on your fabric. So I'm just kind of eyeballing it, but of course you could measure it if you wanted to. And then I'm going to cut that piece out. By the way, I'm using the inner embroidery piece, not the outer piece that has the little bit of hardware on it. That's because it's going to cover that and then be slid in between the two embroidery hoops. So I am just cutting away on my piece of fabric here. And then I'm going to lay it on top of the inner piece. Yep. And not that one. And then I'm going to open the top part as wide as possible without disconnecting the two pieces, or the pieces of the hardware. Kind of smush it on there. Sometimes it takes a little bit more oomph. Some of them are easier to fit on. So I'm going to smush that in between there, and then I'm going to twist the hardware a little bit, pull all the edges of that fabric, and then continue tightening it until the whole thing feels nice and taut. I am just trimming the excess around the edges now, because I don't want a whole bunch of fabric sticking out. So just get rid of that stuff. So then you're going to pick out which felt you would like for your jack-o'-lantern face. I ended up deciding that I wanted to use both the dark green and the light green. I just thought that contrast would look really nice on that dark background. So off camera here, I am just drawing some little triangle eyes, which I end up deciding to add a little eyeball in and then cutting that piece out. So here I am fixing it and cutting out the piece. I just folded my felt to make it easier to cut. That way I don't have to do twice the work. Once I've got those cut out, I'm going to trace it onto my light green piece, again with my marker. And then once I've got those cut out, I'm going to cut out that little eyeball piece in the middle that I'm drawing right now. That way when I glue them together, you can see the dark green in the background. You'll see in a minute what that turns out looking like. All right, so here we've got our two little green pieces that we're going to glue on top of the dark green. So I am just going to grab my hot glue gun, start putting that onto the green piece. Then I'm going to very successfully burn my finger and fling that little piece away. I have officially lost my piece during the burning process. Yep, still searching several minutes later. Where, oh where could my little burnt piece be? Alright, well, moving on with my life, I am going to glue the other one onto my dark green triangle, and then, ta-da, I end up finding my little piece stuck to some paint. So then I glue that one onto the other triangle. I know that I have a high temp hot glue gun, but this one is like unnecessarily hot. Like no hot glue gun ever needs to be this hot. So I'm pretty sure I burned myself at least once more, but at least I've got my cute little eyes done, and I am just kind of eyeing out where I want them on my embroidery hoop. Okay, moving along, we are drawing out our smile for our jack-o'-lantern. Again, we are first cutting it out with the dark green piece, and then we're going to trace it onto our light green piece, just making some adjustments to add the teeth for our smile. So I am just seeing what that would look like, getting distracted by my delicious drink, and then moving along. So here you can see I am starting to sketch out my smile onto the light green piece. I did trace the shape, of course, from the original one that I cut out of the dark green, and then I just added some teeth. I do want to point out that the top of your pumpkin or jack-o'-lantern should be where that hardware is, because we're going to cover that with the stem of the pumpkin later. So make sure that that's at the top. So now I am just cutting out my light green piece to make sure that I've got all the parts I've drawn out nice and cut, and then I'm going to layer it onto the dark green piece. Perfect. Okay, for like a second, I wasn't sure if I liked it or not, so I tried cutting out just the triangles from my original drawing and seeing if I like that, and nope, I ended up not liking it, but I'm moving on to pretending like I do, and apparently burning myself some more. No surprise there. So I am still toying with this other idea of just gluing the teeth, which I ultimately decide not to do. It's not a bad idea, it just was not what I was looking for, so I ended up going back to my original thought and gluing on that jagged light green piece to the other one. Here I am using my demon gun again to glue down my smile. So now I've got my piece and I am layering it onto the dark green part of the smile, pressing it together, and then I'm going to take my scissors and just kind of trim up any extra edges that might be hanging off and start placing my smile on there. After this, I thoroughly get confused, wondering where my hot glue stick was, and then quickly resolve it by getting distracted by alcohol. Perfect. And we're back. I cut out a nice chunk of me not knowing where to find my glue stick and then finally found it. So now I am just hot gluing the back of all my pieces onto my fabric on my embroidery hoop. If you wanted this to be a little more stiff, you could of course just take a thin piece of like cereal box cardboard or something and place it into the back, but I kind of just liked it how it was, so I just did it that way. And I know that I'm not going to be placing anything where it will be poking through, so just having it on the fabric works perfectly fine for me. Looking good, looking good. This is Sparta. And we're back. So next I am just cutting out a piece for the stem of my pumpkin or my jack-o'-lantern. I realized it ended up being a little bit too small, so I just trim it up to the size I need to be, measure it up, and then I put it onto the other piece of felt to copy it and make a backside. I'm leaving the bottom curved since it will be curving around the edge of the embroidery hoop anyways. So I am cutting out the back half of the very same piece, and then I'm going to work on gluing them onto my hoop. Cool, so now I am just putting some glue on the felt, or you could put it directly on the hoop and just placing it onto our pumpkin carefully without burning ourselves. And then I'm going to do the same on the back side. So on the back side, like I said, you can just put it directly on the hoop and that will work perfectly fine. And then I just press that on and glue the tops together. If yours fit around the edges on the sides, you can do that too.
And there it is. Look how cute that is. Again, you can use the bamboo one, paint the edges, use different fabric. I don't know why, I was really feeling the skeleton fabric, so I was excited about that. So here's our first little cute pumpkin decor DIY. Let's move on to the next one.
Number 2 is this super cute pizza candy corn pumpkin.
Okay, first things first, I need to go outside and spray paint this black, but before that, what I'm going to do is use some painter's tape, wrap up this little stem, just because we don't want this to change colors. We actually want it to stay green. And, you know, this is just a Dollar Tree pumpkin, so if it gets ruined or whatever, I can always paint it back over. And actually, let me try something. I think I've seen people pull these out. Genius. Never mind, no tape needed. I'm gonna go outside and spray paint this and we'll be back.
So while we're waiting here, we are just going to take some dark green paint and our little stem and a small brush and just paint that. We want to make sure that the texture of our stem matches the texture of our pumpkin, since that will be painted as well. Okay, so our pumpkin is spray painted and ready, and I'm going to reuse this old styrofoam plate that I always use for my acrylic paints. If you don't know, you can let it dry and paint right on top, or even just peel off the paints, which is what I'm explaining in all this craziness. So I've got some green, yellow, red, some darker red, some white, and I do end up eventually adding a little bit of orange as well. So I'm sticking my stem right back into my little pumpkin, setting that aside. And I've switched over to wine because I ran out of cider. And I am going to start painting. So I am mixing up the colors that I feel like would be perfect for a crust. So I'm using some yellow, a little bit of that kind of burgundy color, and some white, and I'm going to paint that. So I'm going to start by painting little edges of crusts you'll see in just a minute. I'm painting them just as a line and kind of imagining what angle that they would be painted at. So I do this with 2 coats, and I also do 2 coats of just plain white triangles for the candy corn. Alright, so I went ahead and skipped showing you that, but here you can see I have all my base for my candy corn, and I'm starting to make the base for the cheese of my pizza, which is just white and yellow paint. I believe I end up doing 2 layers of this as well. If you have opaque enough paint, you should be totally fine with just 1 layer. I was just using regular cheap crafters paint, and so it did take a little bit. And I think my spray paint might have been a little bit wet, which was also making it difficult to do. So yeah, I did 2 layers of the crust, the white part, and the cheese. Okay, so we've got all of our double layers of that done. I'm now using my burgundy-ish color and a small but flat brush just to make my little pepperonis. And so I am just putting them on each of the cheese slices and making little circles. I didn't mind if the light yellow paint got into it too much, just because it added a little bit of texture, but you just want to make sure that you randomly place them and put some that are half on and half off your slices of pizza, just because that's how it would look naturally. They're not evenly spaced out on delicious pizza. Fun fact, I actually don't really like pepperoni, but I knew it would really get the point across in a nice, simple way without having to draw a bunch of other toppings. Alright, we are looking good, and so now we're just adding some plain yellow onto the middle section of our candy corn. Since we have that white undercoat or base coat, it should be fine with just 1 layer. So that's what I'm doing here, just taking some yellow and filling in the middle part of my candy corn. I'm sure it is no surprise that we are now going on to the orange part. So as you can see, I did add some orange paint onto my plate that I didn't have originally. I probably just forgot. So I am now painting the base or the bottom of my candy corn orange. The particular orange I had was a little bit translucent, so I might have done a second coat. Again, it really just depends on the paint you're using as to whether it's opaque enough to do 1 layer or if you have to do 2 layers. So just go around and fill all those bottom parts orange. Okay, our pumpkin's looking super cute, but it felt like it needed something extra, so I'm adding these little bling rhinestones that have adhesive backing that are from Walmart. They come in a big sheet, but I happen to cut these ones into little strips, and I am just randomly putting them around my pumpkin for some extra bedazzle. I really like fun, sparkly things, and this just fit perfectly with our little pumpkin. Oh my gosh, look how cute it turned out. I just love it.
Alright, we are 2 crafts down. We've got 2 to go. So I've got 1 pumpkin decoration left for this pumpkin decorating challenge, and I've got 1 craft left. So we will move on to the next one.
Number 3 is this super cute little pumpkin jack-o'-lantern candle holder. What you need for this is some Mod Podge. I'm using matte, but you could of course use glossy. I've also got this kind of fishbowl candle holder I got from Walmart, but you can also buy them at Dollar Tree, and some orange tissue paper. We end up using black paint later as well for the face of it. So what I'm doing initially here is I am taking my scissors and my orange tissue paper and just cutting little strips up. So after I've got my strips, what I'm going to do is stack them up and cut them into little squares or rectangles. This is totally kid-friendly too. If you just want to have them rip up little tiny pieces, it'll still look absolutely adorable. I've done this with kids before, and they love the messiness of the Mod Podge and just tearing up the little pieces of paper. So as you can see, I'm just stacking up my strips, and I now am cutting them into little squares or rectangles, which will be Mod Podged onto our glass bowl or candle holder. So then you're going to take your Mod Podge and just go section by section, applying it to your candle holder. If you do it all at once, your Mod Podge will likely dry before you're able to apply it, so just do it section by section. Here I'm leaving a little bit of a lip at the top just to be safe. I don't want any tissue paper hanging over and accidentally getting burnt by my candle. So then you just take your little cute squares and start applying them. You can do a pattern or just spread them anywhere like I did. The only really aligned part is the top and the bottom to make sure it fits perfectly. So as you can see here, I've fully coated my entire candle holder with the tissue paper, and now I'm putting an extra layer of the Mod Podge on top. You want to make sure it's nice and sealed and that there aren't very many bubbles. It's definitely hard at first because all the little flaky edges want to lift up, but just try to pat them all down as best you can. And with a little bit of magic, you can see I have fully coated my candle holder in the Mod Podge. So then I'm going to let it dry for a few minutes before I move on. Ta-da! She is all nice and dry. So now I am just taking some black acrylic paint and a little brush and creating my jack-o'-lantern face. Again, I really like the kind of traditional one, so I'm just doing the typical triangle eyes and a cute little mouth with some teeth. So here you can see I am outlining where I want the mouth to be. If you don't want to jump right in with the paint, you can obviously just use a pencil and lightly mark it. I'm not sure if it will erase or not, so just try to mark it really nice and light before you outline it with your black paint. I always outline it first and then fill it in, and then check if there's any mistakes afterwards. So after I've got that all filled in, his face is absolutely complete. Let's check out how he looks. Looking good. Absolutely adorable. So our final step is just to put a little candle in there and light him up.
I don't know if you can see that, but
Love the glowing center. So much fun. Let's move on to number 4 and our last pumpkin decorating craft. Number 4 is this super cute bedazzled cacti pumpkin. What you're going to need is a white pumpkin. If you don't, obviously just paint one white. And I've got some small clear rhinestones and some big colorful ones and some paint. Now I'm just looking to see which side I think is best to be painting this cacti on. If you aren't sure about what you want it to look like, or you're a little bit nervous about the shape, you can of course just look a picture up on Google or print it out and kind of eye it up that way. I had a pretty good idea of what I wanted mine to look like, so I'm just kind of freestyling it. Once I have found the perfect spot that I want to put my cactus, I am just going to take a small brush and some dark green paint and start outlining it. So on my palette here, I've got dark green paint, light green paint, almost like a lime green, some yellow, and some white. And I am just making the outline shape of what I want my cactus to look like. The cool thing about this is because the pumpkin isn't really a porous surface, if you feel like you screw up, you can always fix it. So I'm just taking a paper towel, a little bit of water, and just scrubbing off the area that I felt like I wanted to redo. Super simple and easy, and you can't even tell. Then I'm just going back over it and fixing it the way that I want it to be. So I've got my little cacti going here, and as soon as he's outlined, we can start painting it. Okay, now I'm taking a fat brush, trying to focus it, and then I'm going to dip it in both the green paint and the lime green paint to kind of get both colors going in there. It just adds a nice variety in the color and almost makes it seem a little bit more maybe three-dimensional, or just adding a little extra touch to it. I also try adding in a little bit of yellow. It doesn't show up much, so I do end up highlighting a little bit of yellow again later. I thought I would speed around this part just because it's all the same color, just going into the same areas. And then for those smaller little knobs on top, I do use a smaller brush just to make sure that I'm not making any big errors outside of the lines that I had originally painted. All right, now we are taking some yellow and some white and a small brush, and we are just going to use this to help highlight some of the top curvy areas of our cactus. Just kind of helps it, again, make it look a little bit more realistic and yet at the same time a little more painterly. So we're just adding some nice highlights and a bit of texture. It is looking so good so far. There it is. I'm going to let it sit and dry before the next part. Okay, now you can see that I'm putting a little bit of pink paint on there. I found some little flowers around my house that I wanted to add to the tops instead of painting them on. So I'm taking a light pink and a like rosy metallic pink and kind of just brushing the ends because I did want a little bit of pink in there. I just felt like that was the color that would complement it best. So now we've got a mix of both that original orange and a little bit of the pink at the tips. I think it kind of adds a little bit of extra detail to our pumpkin piece, and it doesn't seem so cookie cutter that way. Adds a little personalization, you know? Now I am just using my hot glue gun to stick them on there. I did try sticking them in with just the stems, and it was a little bit difficult to push in. So I just snipped off the bottom, and I'm just hot gluing them onto my cactus. It actually held pretty well. I think I had to fix one of them once right after gluing it, but other than that, it looks pretty awesome. Now I'm using some of the large green rhinestones off this sheet I bought from Walmart, and I'm just using them to outline my cactus. The nice thing is they are attached almost as if they're on a string, so I can peel off a few at a time and work on it that way. They seem to stick pretty well on their own, so I didn't end up using any glue for this part. So this is where we're at. She is looking good, but I'm going to use more of those little mini bling rhinestones and just put them all over in random places on my cactus to look like the little needles that stick out of them. Obviously, this is a more glamorous way to have little pokey things on a cactus, but I think it ends up looking super cute. If you don't like this part, you can obviously just leave it with the painting and the flowers for more of a rustic look like Unicorn Dust Designs does in a lot of her crafts, but I really like the shiny stuff, so I'm adding all the bling. I ended up feeling like the flowers just weren't really matching the personality of the cactus, so I have this glitter kind of acrylic medium that I'm just sprinkling on there to make it a little extra shiny. And that's it, you guys. Look how cute she turned out. She is still out in my living room, and I just love how it turned out. That's all, you guys. We made it through the 4 projects. I'm super excited about how they all turned out. Don't forget to check out Unicorn Dust Designs and Crafted by Corie along with the playlist that will be linked in my description. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this new type of video and new segment for my channel. Bye!